What's up, guys? This is the STEM Swag Podcast. I'm Temple Lester, your host, and this podcast is all about me connecting you with the coolest STEM professionals. Dr. Malika Grayson is a mechanical engineer, a global speaker, an educator, and a best-selling author. She created STEMinist Empowered to increase the pipeline of women in color, especially Black women graduating with advanced degrees. You might have seen her on ABC, The CW, Fox, NBC, and so much more. She's a STEM advocate just like me. Dr. Grayson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you finally. I always see great things online. So to finally be connected, it's really cool.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to learn more about what you do. I love seeing what you're doing on Instagram and hearing about all the important things you're doing for the STEM community. So let's jump right into our questions. You're a STEM advocate. I'm a STEM advocate as well. But what does being a STEM advocate mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question because when you were talking about it, it's really about the definition, right? What do I do? Because while our STEM community, I think it's vast, all ages, especially when we think of the pipeline from as early as preschool, early exposure, all the way for me to professional. And my STEM advocacy really focuses on especially people in college, as well as graduate students and early career professionals. So I would say it has evolved. Right now, my STEM advocacy, I'm focused on helping early career and college students with topics like expanding your network. What does it mean to leverage your community to gain sponsors and mentors? How can you leverage your brand? That's a big part of it because and as you know, you're going through that process in college, your resume and that experience, it gets you to the conversation. But what happens after? Once you get into the industry or wherever you decide, how do you now take all that information, all the experiences you have, and really apply it into the new space you're in?
Yes, absolutely. So being a STEM advocate, as you said, it's about all ages, from inspiring the youth to get into STEM, helping college students out to kind of learn more about the life that they'll get into after college and learn how to network and find mentors and people that are important to them. How did you become a STEM advocate? What was that inspiration for you?
It was really because there was a lack of people who I felt didn't represent who I was. Yes. Very early on, and I talk about this a lot in my journey, when I was just a child, the representation for STEM wasn't there. There was no representation in terms of people who looked like us. And what we saw on the screen, white men and these scientists, not knowing the fact that there's so many people within our community. So that was the early onset. And then as I grew up, I didn't really understand where I fit in STEM. And once I really got interested, especially as I got into college, that was an eye-opener for me because I had the opportunity to think about my experience. And of course, through graduate school, every time you go up a level, you feel as if, okay, there are less and less people who look like me. Yeah. And college especially, that was really eye-opening in graduate school because I was the only Black person in my cohort. And then ended up being the second Black woman to graduate with a Ph.D. in mechanical engineering at Cornell, right? And that experience is really what had me thinking, okay, I really didn't appreciate being one of a few or the only one. And I want more people to follow me and go through that pipeline and come out on top. And that is what motivated me to really start speaking about my experience so that people could use my experience to be successful as they go through that pipeline. And then eventually that's what led to the book Hooded.
Yeah, incredible. A lot of things that I find in common, especially with Black women in STEM, the professionals that I've spoken to and learned so much from over the years, including yourself, is that there's always been a lack of people who look like us. And that I always kind of say that if you don't look like, or if you don't see it, you can't be it. But I encourage people to be that first person for the next generation. And I find that a lot in what you were kind of doing. Speaking of you going to Cornell and being the second Black woman to graduate with a Ph.D.,
in mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering, incredible. I know you talk a lot about facing imposter syndrome, going to a PWI. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Definitely can. That experience was something. And don't get me wrong, I had a great community and I built my community as I came in. I think the first year for me was really hard. Just culture shock, homesickness. I'm from Trinidad. It's such a far away from Ithaca. And there were all these experiences, all these emotions I was going through. But then I was also transitioning from being a physics undergrad to now being a graduate student mechanical engineer. So that was a big proponent for me of like, and kind of reason I started having the imposter syndrome in the first place, because I'm shifting now what I think is my expertise to something that is really not my expertise. And I'm looking around and I'm sitting in these classes where I'm the graduate student surrounded by undergrads and they understand what's going on and I don't. And I really had that questioning of, do I even belong here? And is it worth it? That was the first instant. And then the second instant for me was once I found out I had CAPD, which is Central Auditory Processing Disorder. So what that means is that I learn differently. What I hear isn't necessarily what I interpret. And I have to, during school or during graduate school, I would wear actually like almost like an amplifier in my ear. So that way I would focus on really what's being said in the professor, because from the professor's mouth, because with CAPD, all the other background noises, that's a distraction. It really is. Yeah. So you really have to kind of focus in and you really learn more by visuals. And that was really helpful for me to understand that. But again, coming into something that's already so heavy when it comes to the work that you have to do and realizing this is another challenge or something else I have to deal with, imposter syndrome. Maybe I don't belong here. And so there were these little steps that happened that led to that.
So there were also, congratulations on everything. That's just so incredible. You faced many obstacles kind of growing into what you become. I didn't know that you undergrad was physics, and then that kind of even though it's still STEM, that big change into mechanical engineering where it's really different. And you, so just having a lot of difficulties and challenges. How do you overcome those challenges? I know that. How do you deal with imposter syndrome and being a little different?
You know, you have to understand who you are and what you bring to the table. That's one. It took me a long time to really be confident and own who I was. And the fact that I do have an undergrad degree in physics, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that I'm not capable of really understanding mechanical engineering. It means that if anything, I have an advantage because I think differently than anybody else. When it came to my CAPD, I no longer looked at it as something that was really going to make me struggle, but an opportunity for me to understand how not just me, but other people may learn differently, even without a CAPD syndrome. And with those, I think, approaches, that's really what helped me visualizing my success. Like, I talk a lot about imposter syndrome through victory, and victory is an acronym. I don't know if I can remember everything right now, but the V is visualizing your success. I know C is about counting on you and counting on yourself. So not looking to others for validation, but really validating inwardly and looking at your own resume and understanding, yes, I'm that person. And understanding that the R is realization, realizing that this is just feelings. That's all it is. It's a feeling. It's not a fact. And the fact is what you have accomplished. Those are the facts, right? And then, of course, talking about it with other people and looking for opportunities to open up about the experiences, because a lot of people go through it. It's just we don't talk about it. We talk about it a whole lot more than we used to.
Yes, absolutely. How do you personally face and deal with these challenges? What is your own way of like, this is how I'm going to overcome what is put in front of me? That person, like, oh, this seems a little difficult, but now I'm like, hey, I got this.
Mm-hmm. Understanding what I bring to the table. And I'll give an example. Recently I started a new position, and I call it rotation 7 because it's essentially my 7th rotation in the company over the past 7 years. I started 7 years ago, and my background is in physics, but it doesn't define who I am. And it just goes to show, even though your undergrad is in physics and my PhD is in mechanical engineering, I came into the company, software development, then I did R&D, portfolio management. Then I did some more software development and systems engineering. Then I did strategy. And after that, I went into IT and did portfolio management. After that, I did portfolio management for IT projects and program management, as well as project management. Now I'm doing systems engineering management.
Whoa.
So I am at the point now, and I've been doing that just about 2 weeks, where I definitely have that instance of, what do I do here and how do I approach it? Because this is now something completely new. And I pull from my experience and I embrace the uncertainty I feel. And I talk about, well, what are my strengths that I can bring to the table? And where are the opportunities I see that I can grow? And then who can I connect to really learn from them, so that I can fill those gaps?
Yeah.
But I have to talk through those steps, right? Because if I really try to dive into it, I will definitely be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? But you have to really be intentional about how you approach it and those steps. So I always start with the five strengths that are going to help me in this new role or this new situation.
Yeah, I really do agree, like kind of taking it at one step at a time and really looking into what you need to do before you get into the challenge that you're about to face. Personally, I like to kind of like, okay, let me map this out. What am I good at? What is new to me? What is going to be harder for me to do in this situation? And just, okay, this is how I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to go in order of like, okay, let me learn how to do this. Then let me put everything together. Let me take background knowledge that I already had. So I think that part is really important. Having your past experiences. Always, you can always find something in your past experiences that influence what you're doing that's new. Just like by talking to different people, or when you're doing something new, you take your experience that you've had with other people and other opportunities, and they can always be applied to the same thing. So I think that's a really good piece of advice.
Now, about that plan, and it pays to be an engineer. I feel like we have this analytical, and it's all about a system in our head, and that really bodes well for us because we can leverage the fact that we think like that and just lay it all out.
Oh, yes. Okay, so you're an engineer. Let's really talk about that. How did you get on that path of becoming an engineer? What was your STEM journey?
Yeah. I feel like if my dad ever heard this story, he'd be like, I'm so tired of this story, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. I changed my first tire when I was like 15 years old, and I've told that story so many times, but it is the truth. Going to high school in Trinidad, and I think we had a flat tire when I was on my way to school. We were just leaving the house, and my mom was like, well, we have to leave and we need to figure out a way to leave, or we're going to have to take the bus. And I said, no, I think I could change a tire. And she said, oh, you think so? That might be impossible. And I said, no, I am going to figure it out. And there was no Google at the time. All I did is I looked at the tools in the back and I tried to figure out what fit with what. And I think I used this jack for this. And really, that is what I did. And I was so enamored by just how everything worked and how it all fit. And the fact that you could take these components, make it almost like a system, and then use that system to help you change this tire. And of course, I told my mom, see, nothing is impossible, one. And Two, I really want to understand how things work. And that was the first introduction for me for really thinking, okay, this is where I would like to pursue. But I didn't know what STEM stood for. At the time, I didn't know science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Again, young, coming from the islands, not fully understand what engineering means. I'd always wanted to be a doctor growing up. My aunt, she was chief nursing officer in Trinidad and Tobago. I wanted to be a doctor. I told my mom that I wanted to be a doctor since I was 5 years old. My dad, he was like, yes, she's going to be a doctor. And then I just switched it up. And once I switched it up, it was, it was tough. But I realized that wasn't where my passion lied. My passion was actually in physics. Yes. And I really enjoyed equations and the background of it all. And I took that and I eventually discovered once I was at college, because I actually went to college for physics. And that's where I realized there was a 3-2 program where you can get a degree in engineering. And I said, okay, great, because this was making that engineering exposure. And during that time, I did a summer undergraduate research experience. And that took me to a PhD lab, a lab in Georgia Tech. And that's where I said, I want to pursue my PhD, because now I'm taking the theory of what I learned in physics and applying it to real life situations. So that's a little bit about the journey there.
Yeah, that I love that, not even knowing what STEM is, but knowing that you were interested in it without having a name for it and following your passion. I always think about this. My mom is a therapist, and she always talks about how following your passion will lead you to your purpose. She says when purpose and passion collide. I'm giving her a shout out right now, but she always taught that following your heart and following what you want to do, no matter, the challenge that come with it, or if you don't know anything about it, then it'll lead you to much success and you'll just have fun doing what you do. And I think that's very important. Being from Trinidad,
let your passion be a purpose.
Yes, absolutely. Being from Trinidad, were there any engineers that you knew of, or was it something that a lot of people didn't really know about? Did you have people from your island, from your home, that you could look to for inspiration?
That's a great question. I'm thinking right now, the only person I really look to, my cousin, he's actually now a professor, biomedical engineering.
Oh, wow.
And I remember being very young and him going to UE, University of West Indies in Trinidad, and we lived by my grandmother, so he would live in the back and he would come back from school and study, but I was so young. Yeah. And it's funny because we're really close, but I was so young and I really didn't have that concept. And I didn't have somebody who I looked to other than him when it came to the engineering portion of this is where I want to be. And that is why I really wanted to be a doctor in the first place, because I had that. I had seen that from my aunt. Exactly.
Yeah, wow. That's really, I'm happy that you could follow your passion without seeing a lot of inspiration or seeing a lot of people doing it. And that's why it's so incredible to see Black women like yourself that are in STEM fields when there aren't a lot of people who look like us, to be that inspiration and continue to be that inspiration for the next generation of girls who look just like you.
I love it. Yes. And that's what you're doing too. Right? Your journey now, and you're essentially kind of creating the cycle. Yes. Because you were once there. Now you're inspiring them, and the hope is that once they get to that point, they feel the same way because you were inspired by them, or they were inspired by you, I should say.
Thank you. Now I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to get into your book and get into STEMinist Empowered.
Okay.
All right. So tell us first about your book.
Yes. My book is about my journey through graduate school, and I talk about, it's broken down in every year that I went to graduate school and the experiences through that year. It goes through all the emotions, whether it be joy, depression, sadness, every year, what happened, how I coped. And then at the end of each chapter, I have like a lessons learned / almost an action item so people can really keep track. So there are some worksheets in the back, small worksheets. And it's really about my journey through my PhD program. and how I coped. And I keep it very real in the book. And it was a way for me to relieve some of the tension that I had after I graduated, because not animosity, but I just had this heaviness, and my advisor had passed away during my time there while I was doing my PhD, and it was just really stressful. And even though I graduated and I said, yes, I'm done, I still felt some type of I don't even know the words, like emotion. It's not resentment. It's more like emotion, right? Just unsettled emotions. And I just didn't know how to deal with it. And I would start writing maybe a poem here and there just to get my feelings out. And then I thought, well, I want to make sure people never feel how I feel. Yes. And I started writing a blog. So it started with a Black Girl's Guide to Grad School. And I would write the blog every week or 2 weeks. And then I was like, this is just too much information. This all needs to come together some way in perpetuity. And that's what really motivated me to write a book, to make sure that I had all that information, all those tips, the guidelines, the advice, the feeling that you're not alone in one place where somebody could pick up. So that was the motivation behind that.
Yes. It's incredible. I love so much that really you took like, hey, I went through this and I don't want anybody else to feel this. So let me give them a way to kind of also know that other people are going through the same thing, and know that you're not alone in these situations you face. So I think that's a really important book for anybody to really understand, of a story of a Black woman in graduate school, or just how to kind of deal with emotions that life brings you to. So I think that's an incredible book, incredible concept. So I really thank you for giving that to the world.
Yeah, it was really, I have to say, one of the best parts of being a Black woman in STEM. I've never felt so proud to just share my story and shout it to the world and have people really connect with it. Because a lot of times we put ourselves out there and you don't know what people are going to say or how they're going to react, but you have to really put yourself out there, because it's more about what you can offer. And I went to church on Sunday and the pastor said, it's not about you. And I've been using that all week. Like, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you.
All right. Well, one more thing, and then we're going to get into a game.
Okay.
Tell me about STEMinist Empowered. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So STEMinist Empowered, it's really an organization focused on encouraging, empowering women of color, especially Black women, through their advanced degrees, through graduate mentorship, essay review statements. Fun fact, when I first started this whole journey, I actually started by reviewing graduate essays for people who are applying, mainly Black women. I think, maybe a couple of men I've done, but it was really that demographic. And I've had 150 or so reviews done, or I've done 150 reviews in my time. I haven't done it as often because it was just something I wanted to do. And then, of course, time, it's been really hard, and I used to have volunteers. So that's how that started. And I decided that I wanted to start an organization that really focused on, one, that mentorship piece, and two, helping universities, helping companies who would like to really promote that, right? Whether it be through an institution or through their company. So, for example, I've partnered with institutions to put on workshops for, I call it Mastering the Personal Statement. I've put on workshops for connecting your network. Like, how do you understand the power of connections, and how do you leverage your connections to really help you get to the next step? And that's really what it's all about. And I'm hoping to kick off next year our second cohort mentorship program. So it's a 4-month. It was 4 months initially. I want to do 6 months. We had about 11 Black women who were all going through their PhD programs. And it was about them being exposed to other Black women in STEM, whether it be entrepreneurship, advocacy. We talked about imposter syndrome, career development, coaching, and then that one-on-one mentorship. And then through STEMinist Empowered, we have Aspire STEM, and that's the nonprofit side. And There, I focus on scholarships that are given to young women in Trinidad who would like to pursue STEM on the university level. And then they get 1 year of mentorship with me. And so I have had 4 of them through the program now. We're going through the application process to see who will be coming through the program next year. And that's really exciting.
That's so incredible. I learned so much more. I knew of it, but I just learned more about what you did. And I want to say thank you, because a lot of the times people that focus on STEM advocacy focus on the youth and focus on people who can get pushed into STEM careers, but you focusing on graduate students who are already in STEM careers, you focusing on them, on how to make them better, how to make them successful, and connecting them with others to know that they can make it through. It's just so incredible, because you rarely hear that talk about. When I talk to people, again, we talk about pushing our youth into it, or high school students, middle school students, to know that different careers are out there. But I really think it's incredible for you doing this for graduate students who people don't really think about when it comes to their STEM journeys and advocacy and diversity.
Yeah, it's really important, because what we want is that when you're going through the process right now, right? You're in college, and we want to make sure that we don't have a leaky pipeline, as I like to call it. We want you to go all the way. And that's really important. And the only way you go all the way is if you have the motivation. We can't motivate you up to a certain point and then say, well, hands up, good luck out there. I hope you could swim.
Oh, that was, yes. And you said I'm in college. I'm actually not. I'm in high school.
Oh my gosh, even worse. Like,
I'm 16 years old. But I mean, the college process is coming up, so
yeah. And this just goes to show how much you've done during your lifetime, because I swore you graduated and you were already in college, or at least you were there.
A year and a half. I have a year and a half. Class of 2025.
I know you're like all excited. That's great. That's great. And when you get to college and you get to that place and you're kind of looking around, then it's, where is my community? How do I build my community? And that's where Feminist Empowered and just those tips and those workshops really help, right? Because you're like, okay, I'm not alone, and someone gets it.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. All right. So I mentioned we're going to play a game.
Okay.
It's called Show and Tell. So I'm going to show you a picture, and you're going to tell me about this picture. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Let's go.
Oh, this was when I think I posted about Crown Day, and I really wanted to promote the celebration of Black hair. Yeah. And I have had my dreadlocks since I was 14. Wow. Since 2004, I've had my hair. Yeah, so I've cut it like 3 times, but just like bobs like this. It's tied up now, but bobs like this, growing it all the way down, cut it again, then grow it again. And it's something I'm really proud of. Like, I remember sitting down, and one time my mom tried to comb my hair out and I cried. And I was like, no, you can't touch my hair. And I went to the neighbor's house and she put it back for me. But it's, I'm really proud of my locks. And people always ask me, oh, do you think you'll ever cut it? No, I will not.
Well, almost 20 years on your lock journey. That's incredible.
Yeah.
In my Girl Scout troop, when we were doing our Civil War, they did theirs on promoting the Crown Act and knowing that. And I know people who have faced discrimination just because of how their hair looks in non-Black communities or non-Black communities. So I think it's really important for us to celebrate how we look and know that we can look how we look and still be professional and still do all the incredible things.
Yeah, you could be proud of who you are, and it shows through, your hair and whatever else. And I go to work unapologetically with my locks, and I just enjoy it. It doesn't define, I'm not defined by my hairstyle.
Picture number 2.
Okay, you just out here exploring the internet. So this is a partnership with Microsoft, actually, and one of my first, I think, speaking engagements, talking about what is engineering and introducing young girls. And they were actually, I want to say, not middle school. They were maybe around 7, 8. Is that middle school?
That's middle school, yeah. That's
middle school. And yeah, we don't have that. We don't have middle school systems in Trinidad, but yeah, they were around that age, and the idea was showing them what an engineer looks like, what is engineering, what does it mean, different types of engineering, and if this was something they want to get into, because at that age they're hearing with engineering, but they don't understand what is an engineer. Yeah, so like right now I'm on the board for Discover E, stands for Discover Engineering, and their goal is to really introduce children across the world, the globe, to engineers, and they understand what engineers look like. So I really enjoy being a part of that board.
All right. Picture number 3. This is my last picture, and I'm glad to hear about this one.
Oh, this picture always makes me emotional. I've cried so many times over this picture. So this was my PhD graduation, and this person is actually my Auntie Jean, who was the chief nursing officer of Transvago, and you know, she was definitely one of my favorite people ever. And she really grew up. I really grew up with her, and she helped raise me. She's my dad's oldest sister, and so I graduated June here, or May when she came, and she passed away this September, right after my birthday. So it was right before my birthday, and it was really, really sad because I loved her so much, because she was really like one of my biggest motivations, and definitely one of my biggest cheerleaders, advocates, everything, pushed me through and was always there. Really happy when she made it to all the way to Ithaca, and you know, she was just everything. So we miss her so much. But yeah, this is a big day, and it rained. Cornell said, "Oh, it has never rained in the history of graduation day." Definitely had a thunderstorm.
Oh. I love that so much, and that she got a chance to see you graduate with your PhD, and know that you had that support system and those people who maybe even if they didn't know what engineering was, they still supported you to become the incredible person that you are. Yes, yes. This is so incredible. I love to end it off on that note about everybody knowing that having people in your corner will propel you to be the most incredible person that you can be. So continue to have those people in your corner.
Exactly.
All right, one more thing before we leave, Dr. Grayson. I get all my guests, because, you know, I created STEM Girl Swag to show that science is cool and fun. We're girls and we're doing this and we're such a big inspiration. So can you say to our audience, STEM Girl Swag?
STEM Girl Swag.
Yes. Thank you so much. Tell everybody where to find you. Stay connected with her. Right here.
Oh, yes, my website. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, you can find me, Malika Grayson, Dr. Malika Grayson. Website, www.malikagrayson.com. And then IG, Dr. Malika Grayson. And I look forward to connecting.
Thank you so much for joining us and teaching us so much about what you do and the inspiration and how to deal with imposter syndrome and many challenges, and always keeping somebody in your corner. Thank you so much, Dr. Grayson.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Tell me who you want to see on this podcast. I'll see you next time. Bye.